Kia created a huge shockwave in the industry when they introduced the Stinger sports sedan about 2 years ago. Now back then, a nearly 400 horsepower rear-wheel drive performance sedan from Korea was simply unheard of, and sales took off. This vehicle is widely responsible for changing a lot of people's perception of Kia as a premium brand. So today, I'm just outside of Stevenson, Washington, with the rest of the members of the Automotive Video Association for our annual Best Performance Car and Best Performance SUV Awards. And today, Kia has loaned us a Stinger GTS. This is a limited production, drift mode capable all-wheel drive sports sedan with all of the goodies that we like from the GT2, but with a new mechanical limited slip differential for the all-wheel drive model. So the big question I want answered, is the Stinger GTS now the ultimate Stinger you can buy? That's what we're here to find out. So part of what made the Stinger so appealing 2 years ago is when you took a peek under the hood. Now, things haven't changed for 2020, and they didn't need to. The GTS model will come standard with the company's 3.3-liter twin turbocharged V6. It's their GDI V6 engine. It still makes 365 horsepower and 376 pound-feet of torque. The power, honestly, is still one of the tops in the segment. This is more power than what you're gonna get from an Audi A7 and the current generation BMW 440i, at least until the new version comes out. Now, it all goes out through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's designed by Kia. And this vehicle should get to 60 in around 4.7 seconds. Now the GTS trim is available with either rear-wheel drive with a mechanical limited slip diff or their new D all-wheel drive system, which is called dynamic all-wheel drive. It also has a mechanical limited slip rear diff, which has the ability to send up to 100% of the power to the rear, which we'll see if that you can actually feel that later on in the test drive. Fuel economy is also unchanged at 17 in the city and 25 on the highway. As this one sits, it weighs nearly 4,000 pounds. Now, closing the hood and looking at the rest of the styling of the GTS trim, you're going to notice quite a few things. The first thing I want to talk about, you can get any color that you want in the GTS as long as it's Federation Orange. It's a limited production car with this unique color. Only 800 of them, Kia says, will be built. And you'll be able to distinguish the GTS not only from the bright orange color, but from the actual carbon fiber accents that you see. There's carbon fiber in the grille, there's carbon fiber on the functional air vents on the side. The full LED headlights are going to be standard on the GTS trim, and then you have these functional vents right here at the front, which allow for air to pass through and then cool the brakes. You also get more of that dark chrome that you also get on the GTS trim. And honestly, I wish Kia had offered the GTS trim in white, because I think if they offered it in snowflake white with this carbon fiber, it would look fantastic. I'm just not really a big fan of the orange out here in the sunlight. Now, there are a couple of fake vents on the Stinger. Unfortunately, these vents here on the hood are just for show. I kind of wish Kia had just made them real. They could have easily just created a hole there to help cool the engine a little bit. But overall, I still think the Kia Stinger's design really stands out. This is still a handsome looking sports sedan. Now, from the side profile, you can see a couple of changes for the GTS again. The side mirrors are carbon fiber as well, which really look great. This side vent here that I mentioned is also carbon fiber. This is a functional vent. And the wheels, they are unchanged. These are an 18-inch wheel wrapped in Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires. These are also staggered wheels. This is a 225 in the front, a 255 in the back. You're gonna get Brembo brakes again at the front and in the rear. Looks really good, although I'm not really sure if I'm liking the contrast with the orange color. I think, again, this car would have looked so much better if they offered it in a snowflake white metallic pearl. Now, in terms of the size, the Stinger's dimensions are more on the mid-size end. This is bigger than something like a BMW 3 Series or an Audi A5. Its overall length is 190 inches long. That's about the same size as like a Honda Accord. Its wheelbase is longer at 114 inches long. Now, looking at the rest of the proportions at the rear, I love the fastback design. Remember, this is a hatchback. It's like a sport back, so it gives you more cargo space. I'm not sure I'm still loving this little piece here for the taillights. I think Kia should have gotten rid of this. You've got this kind of body colored piece surrounding the red parts of the taillights. Again, the red and orange just isn't sitting well with me, but that's kind of a personal preference thing. Some of you may look at the color and just love it. Now, in terms of the rear design, you can see this one here is the all-wheel drive model. It's $2,500 extra. Kia has replaced the Kia emblem here in the center with the Stinger badge at the back, which a lot of owners apparently were doing anyways. And then, of course, you have a GTS badge with the S in a much larger font, which looks a little bit crazy next to the GT sign. And then, of course, you got the quad outlet exhaust. That rear diffuser, again, hasn't changed. These exhaust tips aren't actually connected to the pipes. They're just there for show. Now, in terms of the cargo capacity, unlike the GT2 trim that I tested before, the power closing trunk and opening trunk isn't available on the GTS, but You still get around 23 cubic feet of space, which is much more than what you're gonna get in a sedan, but you should know that this is less than what you're gonna get in the Buick Regal Sportback and the Volkswagen Arteon. So the outside of the Stinger GTS has very minimal changes, and the same carries through when you get into the interior of the GTS trim. But the first thing I want to talk about, when you get inside, you can see here's that current key fob that Kia has, which kind of looks like, what does this look like again? Huh?
A key?
No, it looks like a something you use to detonator. Yeah, that's the word.
Okay. Just get back in.
Yeah, just get back in. A detonator. That's the word. So the outside of the GTS Stinger doesn't look all that different on the outside, but when you get into the interior, let's go over some of the changes that they've made. Now, the first thing I want to talk about, the key fob. This is the current key fob that Kia introduced on the Stinger 2 years ago. They've been putting this key on everything else that they make now. It kind of looks like a detonator. I really like it. The intelligent access feature is standard on this car, and then when you get in and shut the door, it has a relatively solid sound, so still very pleased. The Stinger's interior is a pleasant place to spend time. Now, start the vehicle up, just put your foot on the brake, push this button here to fire up the engine. And right away, you can hear the growl of the 3.3 liter V6. It's definitely a nice sound, but you should know other vehicles like the BMW and the Audi have a little bit more of a snarl from the exhaust, which we'll talk about that later on in the test drive portion. Now, in terms of the equipment for this GTS trim, the last Stinger I was in was the GT2, and that's the top of the stack. It has like the premium Napa leather. It had a heads-up display. I had heated and cooled seats. You still get some good features on the GTS. The first thing you're going to notice, it's got an Alcantara steering wheel, which I don't love because Alcantara just gets disgusting after a year or so of usage from the oils in your hands, and this is not the easiest material to clean. It does feel good in your hands and it looks good when it's new, but just know that it's going to wear out poorly depending on how often you're willing to take care of it. The Alcantara is also on this center console lid as well. The rest of the interior, I have to say, I'm a little let down by the fact that there's very little differentiation. For example, the red stitching that you see here, why didn't Kia carry out the red stitching through the dashboard, through the seats, through the door panels? Or they could have put some orange stitching in here to match the exterior color. I just think it's a little bit too Spartan. Again, just like the orange exterior, black is your only interior option. So I highly recommend just foregoing the GTS, honestly, and just going for a GT1 or a GT2 if you guys want more features. Now, the GTS trim slots between the GT and the GT1, so you're not going to get the electronic shifter, you're not going to get cooled seats, you're also not going to get Kia's DriveWise package. So if you're looking for adaptive cruise control, forward collision warning, automatic braking, it's not available on the GTS trim. You have to step up to their other trim. The instrument panel you can see here also has a smaller 3.5-inch display as opposed to the bigger 7-inch display with the color LCD. It definitely looks a little bit more basic, but the GPS you can see here is standard on the GTS trim. It's part of this 7-inch infotainment screen. It's a touch screen. I think Kia actually needs to consider updating this infotainment system. It is starting to look a little bit small compared to the competition. They could easily go to a widescreen, like a 10-inch display, because remember, you get that on something like the Kia Soul, which is new for 2020. In terms of the rest of the materials, it's still pretty nice in here. You have genuine aluminum trim on the center console, on the dash here. It's soft touch right here, soft touch over there, soft touch on the door panels. There's aluminum trim everywhere. You also get the premium 15-speaker Harman Kardon sound, which sounds incredible in this car. I think it's a great deal. I think a lot of buyers are going to like that. The steering wheel you can see here tilts and telescopes. It actually includes a heated wheel function because this one here is the all-wheel drive model. Kia typically pairs all-wheel drive with the heated steering wheel because they think you're in a colder climate. Opening up this lid over here, you can see there's actually a wireless charging display. I wasn't expecting that for your phone, the wireless charging for your phone. And then you have a USB. You have a 12-volt over here, and then if you want, you can close this off and you can seal that off, which will hide your phone. I love the aluminum trim over here on the center console. Your drive mode selectors over here, some more buttons here for the start stop. Your heated seats, which you can see are 3 levels. And then when you put the vehicle into reverse, you can see it gives you a backup camera. If you're looking for the 360 camera, you have to step up to the GT2 trim along with the heads-up display, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, the one thing about this car, because I have the all-wheel drive model, it's supposed to have a drift mode, which if you play around with the drive mode wheel over here, you can see Kia offers 5 different drive modes. There's starting at Smart, there's Eco, there's Comfort, and there's Sport, and then there's Custom. When you go to the Custom setting here, it allows you to tailor the powertrain response. You can tailor the steering comfort. You can tailor the all-wheel drive system. And that's the thing where I'm confused, because this car is supposed to have a drift mode, but I just don't find the drift mode over here. So if you guys know how to access the drift mode for this car, please feel free to leave that in the comments below, because I was Googling it, I was looking in the owner's manual, and I just couldn't find how to actually put this thing in drift mode. My only suspicion is put it into sport mode and then push and hold the traction and stability control button. So Kia says there's a drift mode, but I can't seem to find it in the drive mode settings. So let's look in the owner's manual. Why does it have to be so thick? And I'm in the index here. There's nothing about drift mode in here. All right, let's try Google. Kia Stinger GTS drift mode. And it's a bunch of videos of the Kia Stinger actually drifting, but there's no videos on how to actually put it in drift mode. Great. All right, I figured out how to put it in drift mode. We'll just put it into sport, and we'll just tell the car to go into drift mode. And that should put it into drift mode. Now, drift mode allows this car to send up to 100% of the power to the rear, which previously you could only send up to 80% when you guys added the all-wheel drive system. But overall, the rest of this cabin, you can see center console, it has a good amount of space. There's no actual USB ports in there. There's a little bit extra storage. The seats, they're also pretty comfortable, but I do miss the premium Napa leather that you get with the GTS trim, and I also miss the fact that they're not cooled. And then above me over here, there's kind of a half-sized panoramic sunroof. I'm glad that it comes with the GTS trim, but overall the interior, it's a little bit dark. I wish Kia had done a little bit more to make this interior feel a little more special than a regular GT trim. Now, getting into the back seat of the Stinger, things again haven't changed back here since this car came out. And if you're looking for a back seat that is cavernous for full-size adults, I'm sad to report that the Stinger is simply not there. Now, when this car first came out, it had a pretty decent-sized back seat, but now that I've driven the Regal Sportback and the new Arteon, which has far more legroom. Now, Kia says you get around 36.5 inches of legroom. That's actually matching that of what you get in something like a Honda Civic. Although, because of the rear drive chassis, the interior definitely feels a little bit on the snug side. I mean, you have this very large hump here that intrudes on the middle passenger, so that's for the drive shaft. I like the fact that Kia gives you rear seat vents. You have a power outlet there, and then you have a USB port. But overall, it's not quite as roomy as I'd like. But fold this down here, you get an armrest here with 2 cup holders. It is missing heated rear seats, so keep that in mind. If you guys are looking for heated rear seats, you have to go up to the GT2 trim level. So when I first saw the specs of the Stinger GTS, obviously I was excited that Kia was introducing a new variant of the Stinger, but I was also a little bit disappointed because this is really just a specialty model. I mean, yes, it's got a unique look on the outside. The orange isn't really my cup of tea. It's got a newer all-wheel drive system, which, you know, will do drift mode, but frustratingly, I can't seem to figure out how to actually put it in drift mode. But basically, it's just like all the other Stingers. You move the drive mode selector around. In sport mode, it'll send up to 80% of the power to the rear wheels. And then my guess is if you turn off the stability control and everything, that's when it'll actually put it into its drift mode and allow you to send up to 100% of the power to the rear wheels, which we'll see if this car will step its tail out later on in the drive. But when you drive this thing just normally, the Stinger has a really good dual personality. This is a car that still has a relatively comfortable ride. The visibility is where you kind of have to get used to with the Stinger. It's been a while since I drove one. The view out the front is definitely a little bit obscured. I mean, you've got this hood that is very tall. You've got this little skinny windshield. It kind of reminds me of driving a muscle car. Think of the Stinger as almost like a Korean muscle car, but just without the V8. The steering in this vehicle is still really good. The Stinger was one of the first Korean vehicles that I drove that actually had steering that would talk to you, which was really nice. And you can kind of feel the rest of Hyundai and Kia's lineup that's kind of trickling down from the Stinger. The engine in this car is also very torquey. It's very strong. It doesn't kind of have the exhaust noises that I would like this car to have from like something like the Audi S5. But let's get out on this road here and let's see if I can get the back to step out. Remember, this is an all-wheel drive version. All right, that definitely stepped out a lot more than I remembered the last all-wheel drive Stinger that I drove. It was interesting because this car, once the back end does step out, it can startle you at first, but it's a really controllable car. And you can credit the Stinger's long wheelbase. Remember, Albert Biermann helped design this car, and you know, he tuned the handling of this car. This is the guy that came from BMW's M division. And really, it just takes one drive in the Stinger. So the all-wheel drive model is pretty cool in the fact that it does have the ability to allow you to do drifts. I just wish that it actually showed me a drift mode here. So I'll be curious to see in the comments if you guys know of how to actually put this thing into a drift mode where it actually says drift mode in the instrument panel. But going down the road, the rest of the driving feel in sport mode here, the car feels a little bit stiffer. It doesn't have the full-on adaptive suspension that you get with the GT1 and GT2 trim levels. So the ride quality is a little bit more on the firmer side, I'm noticing now. The road noise is a little bit high, but I'm also noticing that this road here in Washington State is a little bit crappy. But you really just kind of have to get used to the visibility. This is still very much a GT car that likes to drift, that has been tuned to drift. But most of you are going to drive this thing every day to and from work. You could probably take it to autocross and enjoy this thing. You could take it to a track. But I imagine those of you who are actually going to take it to the track are just going to get the rear drive model. I mean, what's the point of adding the weight, the complexity, and the cost of the all-wheel drive system, especially if you live in an area that doesn't actually see snow? I just don't see the point of getting this, the all-wheel drive system. Most people, most enthusiasts will just end up getting a rear-wheel drive model. Now, I want to try the launch control in this vehicle because Kia says you'll still get to 60 in 4.7 seconds. This car does have launch control. Basically, to put it into the launch control mode, you have to come to a complete stop, obviously, and then you want to turn off all the nannies. Once you disable all the nannies, you kind of have to put your foot on the brake and then floor it, and then it'll actually say launch ready, like the other Kia products that I've driven with the launch control. And again, not much drama because this car is all-wheel drive. It feels fast. I mean, 4.7 seconds. This will keep up with something like an Audi A7, a BMW 440. I mean, this is fast, especially considering the money. Keep in mind that a lot of the German competitors, they're going to be easily $15,000 more than this car. Don't even think about comparing this to, an Acura TLX or a Lexus IS350. This has considerably more power. Now, of course, there is the Infiniti Q50, but that car, for what it has, or for the great engine that it has a chassis that just isn't up to par. It's got a dumbfounded transmission. The 8-speed in this car, however, is a Kia design transmission. It does have paddle shifters. It's 8 speeds, like I said. When you pull the paddles, it does a decent job of rev matching. But it will upshift automatically for you if you don't shift it right before the red line, so that kind of disappoints me. But when you leave the transmission in its regular drive, it just goes about its business very well. It's not as snappy as the 8-speed ZF unit, and I also wish that there were some crackles and some burbles from the exhaust. I mean, the Veloster N has all those crackles and burbles. Why couldn't Kia have put it into this car? It just surprises me. But other than that, the Stinger is still a very, very nice sports sedan. Great value for money, incredibly fast, handles well, rides well, easy to drive on a day-to-day basis, and I think it's still gonna please a lot of people when you actually get out on the road and drive this thing. So when I first drove the Kia Stinger about 2 years ago, I came away hugely impressed with this car. I called it a game changer in the ultra competitive compact luxury sports sedan segment. And the fact that it came from Korea was just a huge surprise, not only for me as an enthusiast, but for a lot of consumers as well. This car has seriously changed a lot of people's perception on Kia, even more than the company had already done over the last few years with their recent improvement in quality. That brings me back to the GTS trim of this car. I asked earlier, is this the ultimate Stinger? Now, when you look at the car in this bright orange color, you might think that it's the ultimate Stinger, but really what the GTS trim is, it's just a specialty limited production car because Kia is only building 800 of these, as I said. And really the big highlight for the GTS trim is the D all-wheel drive system, the dynamic all-wheel drive system, which gives you the drift mode. I think Kia honestly will probably just add this all-wheel drive system to the rest of the all-wheel drive cars because people who are buying a Stinger and want to do drifts, they're going to buy the rear drive model. If you want the all-wheel drive Stinger, you're going to want the all-wheel drive grip with the rear drive bias. I think what Kia is basically going to do is they're going to put this fancy all-wheel drive system in the other Stingers and call it a day. I also really would like to see them offer the carbon fiber package that this GTS trim offers on a white car. So just offer it as a package on the GTS trim and offer the Alcantara if people really want it. So the GTS trim as it sits is not the ultimate Stinger, but this is still one of the best luxury sports sedans you can buy that offers a look that still stands out, offers an incredible amount of value because as you guys know with Kias, they're full of value. This car still starts at around $32,600 for the base trim. This GTS trim level here is about $4,000 more than what you're gonna pay for a regular base GT. As I said earlier, this slots between the GT and the GT1. For the $5,000, you basically get the fancy all-wheel drive system, the carbon fiber, the Alcantara, and the special badging. All-wheel drive on this one adds about $2,500. So all in, you're looking at around $47,000. Now that is a really good value, but for $50,000, I would easily get the GT2 trim and get all the extra equipment that I really like on this car. And I think a lot of buyers are gonna probably notice that, which is why Kia is only limiting the GTS trim to only 800 units. Now, I'm not gonna do an RPM rating on this car simply because I am out here in Washington and I haven't really had it for the full week to do a full test on this car, but I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2020 Kia Stinger GTS. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video. Sports sedan segment, and the fact that it came from Korea was just a huge it's just a huge surprise. That's the word I was looking for, surprise. On all the all-wheel drive models, it shouldn't be only offered on the GTS trim, but really it was just kind of a specialty trim level that I'm seeing. I'm kind of rambling there. I feel like I'm rambling there. Yeah, let's try it one more time. There you go. It's sort of in drift mode.
That was terrible. All right, is the fan on right now? Why is it on?
Yeah, the fan's on, that's why.